Good evening, everyone.
Dr. Higgins.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us, whether you are here with us in person or tuning in virtually. It's wonderful to see so many members of our Rush community gathered together. My name is LaToya James. I am the Director of Alumni Relations at Rush University, and it is truly my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's program, Voices of Vision, Rush Leadership on the Future, Rush University's Leadership on the Future of Academic Healthcare. I'm excited to share that we had over 200 people registered for this event, some joining virtually, of course, which reinforces the interests and commitment of our alumni, donors, and friends to learn more about Rush, our new leadership, and the university's future. At Rush, our alumni, faculty, and students are the heartbeat of our institution. Tonight, you'll hear directly from the leaders shaping Rush University's path forward. Their perspectives, vision, and collaborative spirit guide the work we do every day to support our students, advance our mission, and strengthen our community. It is now my honor to introduce Dr. Bob Higgins, President and Chief Academic Officer of Rush University, Chief Clinical and Academic Officer and Senior Vice President of Rush University System for Health, and the James A. Campbell Presidential Chair. He'll be moderating our panel discussion. On the panel, we have Dr. Julie Hoff, Provost Senior Vice President and the Robert C. and Naomi T. Borwell Presidential Professor, and the deans of our colleges, Dr. Christine Kennedy, John L. and Helen Kellogg, Dean in the College of Nursing, Dr. Pete Batra, Senior Vice President and Dean of Rush Medical College, and sitting in for Dr. Jason Turner, the Dean of College of Health Sciences, is Associate Dean and AI Integration Program Director Nadine Laritte. These leaders bring deep expertise and unwavering dedication to the future of academic healthcare, both here at Rush and across the nation. Before we get started, I would like to quickly share some stats and fast facts. Rush has a powerful network of nearly 25,000 alumni living around the world and working in a wide range of professions. Wherever you are, at whatever stage of life you are in, there is something here for you. Follow us on social platforms and share your personal professional updates with us by submitting a class note online. We will include links in a post-event email along with our social media handles and encourage you to stay connected with Rush and your fellow alumni and university friends. Some quick housekeeping notes. A Q&A session will follow our conversation. For those joining virtually, please insert questions in the chat and a staff member will read them. For those of you who are here, we will have a mic on a stand in the center aisle for you to ask questions, or I believe people will be passing around a mic. Thanks, Laura. I will now turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, LaToya. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening. We really are honored. I think the weather may be apropos to the current socio-political climate, but we're not going to talk about that. We want to thank you for joining us this evening. We are fortunate to have such a great panel of leaders to provide insight about the future of Rush and our academic and clinical integration. It really is a great opportunity to help us understand our future as well as our present and draw upon our lessons from the past. I've said on many occasions that since being back at Rush almost 2 years now, that we can't often choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. And in the current role, leadership is critically important to help guide those choices and ultimately to inspire our faculty, our staff, and our students in the execution of our strategic plans. So our goal is to fully integrate our academic and clinical mission as a integrated academic health system. In addition, we are recognized as a nationally impressive healthcare organization that provides extraordinary care while also educating the next generation of students, faculty, and staff. The teacher practitioner model has changed and trained the next generation of healthcare providers in extraordinary ways. And many of you are in this room are responsible for that training and that excellence. But if we don't have a goal and a strategic vision, then our plan is just a wish. And so we have to be able to think about how to articulate our vision for the future. And hopefully we'll include some of those insights this evening. So we're in the midst of a Without Boundaries Rush campaign. And I want to give a shout out to Pete and the whole development and philanthropy team for their excellent work over the past several years to make this campaign very successful. So a round of applause for our development team. They've helped to guide among our most ambitious fundraising initiatives at Rush, focusing on education and workforce development, as well as providing resources for the next generation. And you can imagine that during these times, things like scholarship and research funding and educational programming are critically important to our success. And we really are thankful to the people in the audience and online and our whole Rush family for providing resources, precious scholarships, and funding and programmatic investments that are going to make a difference. Even if the outside it's stormy, inside it's pretty cozy right now because of all of you. And so I want to say thanks again for all of you who have contributed and who will contribute in the future. So our alumni and trustees have been supportive for many, many years. And this tradition allows us to hear the voices of what our vision for the future is going to look like. And so we'll have a setting here where we have some open questions and conversation. You've been introduced to our panelists, and I'm hopeful that it'll be insightful for you. You'll learn what your contributions, what your commitments, what your future investments are likely to help us accomplish. So as we talk to our panelists, we'll look for your questions and hopefully have an exciting session. So I think the first challenge, of course, is to figure out, as the evolution of this organization occurs, we've got some pretty bold plans. And ultimately, it may change the lives of all those students and the faculty and the patients who come to Rush for extraordinary care. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to, and start with Nadine, sorry, no pressure on you, to briefly share one or two priorities that you're excited about or potentially could impact what we believe the future will look like at Rush. And maybe AI may feature prominently in your answer. So Nadine, with all due respect, thanks so much for joining us.
Is the mic on?
The mic is on.
Okay. Thank you. So I will get to AI, I promise. That is a huge piece I want to talk about. But in terms of things that I'm excited about right now and a future angle, my response has changed since I've talked to some alumni and even students in the audience tonight. I think personally, being an alumni myself of this institution, now at Rush feels very cohesive, and students and faculty feel in this together right now in this moment. And so it feels really exciting to start to have a new generation of students emerge, because we'll get to AI as being a key piece of their education. But students are coming together with faculty to work on research projects that are pushing healthcare forward, and it's across all the colleges. So I interact with students every single day in person, online with them, and it feels really, really exciting. They want to be here. I feel that the institution has really embraced this, like, let's all work together for the greater good of all students and all faculty. And right now, more than ever, scholarships are bringing students in that maybe didn't have a chance before, but they're here and they're excited, and they're bringing a whole new angle to how we're pushing healthcare forward. And so I'm just really excited in the current climate of student and faculty collaboration at Rush.
And appreciate that perspective. So, Julie, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're excited about or what your priorities are as the provost.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be here as the provost at Rush University. And I was telling Bob a few days ago, this will be my 40th anniversary of my graduation from Rush this May. And it will be my first commencement as the provost. And, you know, as a provost, you're very responsible for students' academic success. You want your faculty to be successful, and you want to support your staff and their growth. But I would be remiss if I wouldn't share that probably the thing I inherited and embraced at the same time when I got here was the digital transformation that's taking place here at Rush, both from an operations perspective, the things that we will be doing around finance and HR and supply chain, but also when a student thinks about coming to Rush, from the time that they think about coming to Rush until the time they graduate, they touch up to 30 different systems. Whether it's tell me more about the program or I need to file for graduation. And so my excitement here is with the digital integration that's taking place, and I would say the community and the working together, we are sitting in rooms with College of Health Science, College of Nursing, Rush Medical College, and having these conversations about how do we leverage this technology, this digital integration, this use of technology for the success of the university, as well as the success of our students and our faculty and staff. So that's what I'm excited about.
Great. Dr. Kennedy, maybe you can tell us what you're excited about over the years you've been here now.
Yes, it's like a dark and stormy night. The story starts, right? And you threw me off there because I thought we were going to go in the order of my esteemed colleague in medicine who's been here longer than the rest of this panel has been here. So I might defer to his wisdom on that. But I will say that on cue, a dark and stormy night for those of you who are online. One of the really compelling reasons why I came to Rush 6 years ago was because this was such a unique operations, a university, a medical center. And as an outsider from the middle, not having gone to school in the Midwest, et cetera, and having spent time East Coast institutions and West Coast institutions, I had a little bit of a doubting Thomas, philosophy about, they say they're doing health equity. They say that these other aspects of the mission and the efforts, the strategic plan are what carries the place forward. So, a little bit of a jaundiced perspective. And then after I got here, which was, of course, during the pandemic, so life was, completely different than what we get to live right now. What was the most wonderful thing is it turned out to be all true, that there really were people committed to the community and the health of the community that Rush is situated in, et cetera. And so having a strong academic enterprise like the College of Nursing at the time and currently was, I just felt like it was icing on the cake. However, there were still things to do. And so I think one of the strengths of the university is the ability to say, okay, that's great, but we need to drive innovation. So we can't just rest on our laurels or our rankings and, the dollars people are bringing in from NIH and et cetera. people still, because we are driven by young learners. And I would suggest I agree with both of my colleagues here that, it is the students and the young faculty who really are sometimes that little engine behind you that says, yeah, but what about this? Why are we doing things this way, et cetera? And so I think that there's large promises to deliver on in terms of our mission and our strategic plan, but that we do have really great staff and faculty. So I'm hugely optimistic that we can go into an uncharted future because of the world we're living in currently, where there are a lot of challenges, but there is such a great community here who invest in those challenges. And I think innovation is one area where, it's an important consideration to say, yes, we have fantastic educational programs and we have good research enterprises going on, but what else should we be doing? Because you cannot stand still and still deliver on your promise if you just keep repeating what you've been doing. So I'm excited about what doors may open with partnerships, for example, with the business world, because that is different for a College of Nursing to be partnered with the business enterprise. And we have some really good nascent projects around faculty practice and developments in those partnerships. So I think that it's, even though it's a dark and stormy night, that there's just such potential for this place to even be delivering further on our mission. So.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Kennedy. So, Pete, you've been characterized as the most senior member of the panel, and yet we know that you're the person who's got the least amount of time in the saddle, so to speak, as the dean of the medical college. So tell me what you're excited about as you embark upon this new adventure from chair to dean.
Yeah, I don't know how that math calculation was done, but it's very flattering nonetheless. Yeah, so excited to step into this role. In my 24-year academic healthcare journey, I've spent half of it as chair here and just logged in 90 days in dean. And what's kept me around is this is a really warm and collegial place. Every faculty that I've ever recruited to Rush, as I'm now recruiting chairs and division chiefs, I always tell them this is the only place that I've worked at. And previously I was at the Cleveland Clinic and Southwestern and Northwestern as well. It's the only place when you meet new people, they tell you, welcome to Rush. I never got that anywhere else. So as I step into this role, I'm excited about a lot of things, but I'm going to go back to the comment you made on the lectern there, Bob, and that's about clinical academic integration. Almost logged in 12 years as chair, and I lived that clinical and academic excellence hand in hand for that time period and what it did for ENT at Rush. And I really believe that's their secret sauce, and we can't get away from that. And I think in a world when the pressures on our margins and funding from payer mix challenges are so great, it's easy to veer from the academic mission, and we can't do that. When we stay true to that, our clinical programs thrive. We can, do a better job with education. Our research is better, and all of that fuels reputation and more referrals. So as long as I'm in this tenure, I'm going to keep reminding people of that and really stay true to it.
Fantastic. Really happy to hear that you're committed to that academic mission. So as you think about the role, though, our students will acquire certain skills and mindsets that allow them either to embrace that academic or the clinical or the research perspective. Can you talk about how the next generation may be different than some of the ways in which we were exposed in a bygone era? And in particular, what do we need to teach our young professionals? And I ask all of you to respond to that, about how to be successful in the current environment. Maybe start with Pete, and then we'll come back to Christine and down the line.
Yeah, all of us are educators, and that's been, critical to who we are our entire careers. And what I would say is, when I look at the medical school, these are Gen Z kids, mid-20s, maybe up to 30s. They're digital natives. That's how they think. They think in groups, and education has to evolve to fit that mindset for the new generation. So I kind of think of 3 or 4 key things that are really critical, and I suspect they will apply to all of our colleges. One of the things is really about adaptability. And, medical knowledge is exploded. Think of 1950, knowledge was doubling at a rate of about 50 years. Now it's a few months. Even in my own specialty of rhinology and skull-base surgery, I can't keep up with everything after 25 years of doing it. And we're going to expect students to come in and to be able to absorb all of that. So they have to be able to constantly absorb, recalibrate the information that exists. And that's going to be critical because they have to be lifelong learners. I think the second thing is really they're very digitally savvy, and we have to acknowledge that. And it's no longer about lectures in the classroom. And so we're going to be adapting digital platforms, and some of that is already being used, but we're going to double down and acknowledge that medical education, yes, we'll have educators, but we're going to be supplemented with additional digital things that they can do. I think the third thing is interprofessional education. And that's critical because I think our students think that way in this generation. And I think Rush is especially suited for that. We have great schools, the health sciences, nursing, and medicine. And when I talk to our medical students, they yearn for that. They have a class on interprofessional education. Ironically, right now it's virtual. And we're going to change that. We'll work with Christine and Jason will change that because they should be collaborating in the classroom and in the lab together.
Great. Christine, perspective about what our students should be prepared for and how can we help them obtain those skills?
Sure, but I'm going to dissuade my colleague here that I didn't mean he was the oldest one here. I'm retiring this summer, as many of you know, after 50 years in nursing. So I'm going to claim that space as those things go. But I think Pete's the oldest one on this panel who's worked at Rush, is what I was trying to say. So, and in some ways, it's great to go out on a high note. And I feel that the College of Nursing is actually on a very high note, where our academic programs are, most of them are ranked in the top 5 in the United States. So my comment to faculty and students is I could close my eyes and not pay attention to any of that. And those academic offerings, so the traditional curriculum and the clinical experiences, could keep going on and still deliver on the necessary skills of becoming advanced clinicians. As some of you may or may not know, I think most of you here are pretty familiar with Rush's, that we're all graduate programs. So, it's a different learner group than the beginning undergrads in the health sciences, et cetera. And the reason I point that out is because that is a different learner group also. To have the graduate students, the average age of our students in the College of Nursing is about 28. So they have other life aspects to them, and they are eager to learn, but also to move along. And there is very much of I would say even a sense of urgency. And I think that's important to meet people where they're at. And so from the perspective of the college specifically, the students who get attracted here are technology savvy. Absolutely. They could put most of the faculty to shame, and they frequently do at times stand up and go, wait, I'll fix that for you, if you're doing a classroom lecture. But they are also have this insatiable, because they chose to return to graduate school. They already were practicing nurses or professionals, at least in the nursing and perhaps a bit more in CHS. And they want to advance. They're curious. They want things to be different. and they want to make a difference. And so to me, that's like uncorking the champagne. So we kind of want to get out of their way and facilitate their learning as opposed to, we're dumping information into their heads. That's just not the model that fits the students, much less current good pedagogical approaches. So I think that there's lots of opportunity to do some things different, and our students have strong opinions about that. So I'm not yes, well, some of us do laugh at that, and then other times you're like, oh my God, did they really want to do that? So there's an experimental phase that goes on, and I think, but there's also just such rich opportunities to look to doing things differently and not just stay on our laurels, if you will.
So no more bedside walk rounds, teaching physical exam or clinical acumen, I guess, huh?
Virtual reality. No,
I'm going to skip Julie.
Yeah.
Sorry, and go to Nadine and see what your students are thinking from the College of Health Sciences, because you have such a diverse group, and what are their interests and their needs and what their wants are. They may be parallel to what we see in nursing and medicine.
Yeah, there's definitely some parallels. Thank you. But CHS, like has been mentioned, is quite different than the other two colleges in that we have 15 plus programs. So that's 15 different curriculums, 15 different professional tracks that our students are going to go into. But one thing that has kind of intersect all of them and is a common theme right now is AI, of course. So I don't think the question of it's not a question of if they're going to interact with AI in their professional fields post-graduation, it's just how. And so because we're such a diverse college, I've been trying to undertake the goal of educating our educators to help our students utilize AI responsibly, and for the better of the patient, right? And so I think they, like Dr. Kennedy mentioned, they're great in the digital realm. They know more about it than we do as faculty and leaders, but at the same time, they need to use it with compassion. And so I think if you can kind of couple AI with like eye care values, right? Those two things can create this perfect world where they can use digital transformation. They can use the tools at their fingertips, but also they need to learn from us and from Rush and the culture that we've established that it's all for the greater good of the patient, right? And sometimes there's hard conversations and there's different ideas that need to be fleshed out that AI can't help with. And so in the College of Health Science, we're making sure they emerge technology savvy and they can use AI in their respective fields, but at the same time that they're also emerging as compassionate graduates who can unify the two.
I think that's really well said. I think that I'm hopeful that this technology and innovation, the AI, is an enabler of better, more empathetic and compassionate care. Enables it, not necessarily the purpose of involving it with the care. So we're hopeful that that's going to be the case. So Julie, you were responsible for helping us recruit Dr. Deb Martin, thinking about the well-being of our students as the Vice Provost for Student Affairs. Maybe you can speak to the needs of our students from a support perspective, whether it be emotional support or financial support or academic support, because I think that's been a focus of yours and it's been very well received by our students and by Dr. Martin, who's done a great job. But maybe you can comment about that in terms of the needs of this generation of students compared to previous generations.
I thank you, Bob. I look back when I went off to college. I went off to college with a typewriter, a digital clock radio, and I'm trying to think. I think maybe I had a refrigerator, and I had a popcorn popper. Those were my technology when I went to college. And so, when we talk about the needs that students have, we also have to realize the world is far more complex. so much faster moving. I mean, my first patients as a nurse, they were in the hospital for 7 days recovering from getting their gallbladder taken out. And now you don't even see those patients. They're like in the outpatient surgery and home 3 hours later. So I think we have to take into account, it's not that the students are needier, it's just like the world is faster, but they also have greater expectations of what they expect from work and their peers. And so I want to commend, we have a great partnership with HR that really supports our student wellness center as well as a wellness center for our employees. Our students have unlimited access to behavioral support. We have a psychiatrist on staff specifically for students. We have where Debbie is building financial aid, financial management coaching, because the world will be changing. It's no longer filling out your FAFSA form and getting your loans. Our students are going to be having to go out to the private market every year, fill out a credit application, and get their loans annually. So they need to know they can't buy a car, they can't get a new credit card, they shouldn't buy a house from one year to the next if they don't have income. And these are things that I don't think I knew at 20, but we're asking again, we're putting more on the students. So Debbie's building this amazing financial management coaching team. In addition to that, we have great academic support. We have academic coaching, academic advising, testing prep, study prep. We have accommodations. Students might need extended time. They may need a quiet place for testing, but the demand for that and the awareness of how important that is has skyrocketed in the last decade or so. I think I saw a statistic that students at Stanford, 60% of students have accommodations. The states of Oregon and Washington have gotten rid of the bar exam because they can't do the accommodations in the testing. So they've moved to an internship. So there's a lot of change taking place, but I want to say here at Rush, we're doing a great job, and it's so important to us that students feel they have a place, they're part of a really important mission, and there is no other place that they belong but here at Rush. So, but I don't do it alone. It takes a big team. These people up here with me and many people in the audience. So thank you.
Great. We appreciate that reflection, because I do think that one of the things that is not well known is that many of our students graduate with well over $200,000 in debt or student loans, and those things are all going to be changing. So it's an extraordinary time for medical education, and many of our nurses are working full time in addition to getting their education. And so it's a different paradigm potentially than we've previously been aware of. So I want to shift gears a little bit. Dr. Kennedy, you gave a great summary of your career a week or 10 days ago, and you talked about your career as a researcher in an academic setting. Maybe you can discuss some of the things that are important about our academic programs, and particularly research, translational research, whether it be in nursing or in medicine or in the College of Health Sciences, that we're trying to support. And our faculty is critically important, because it does just differentiate us from a healthcare delivery system if we do research and educate our students on how to apply that research to improve care. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So I have to warn you guys, Bob is completely off script, which is one of the things we like about the world we live in here. And it's like, well, we had a few questions we thought were coming our way, and now we're pivoting just into interesting directions here.
But the question was, how can Rush lead in translational research and applied innovation?
Yeah, we were going to give that to Pete, though. But I'll start. No problem. As you know, I'm not bashful
When you're
on
an investigator. You're not
on that one.
shy about talking.
No, thank you for that opportunity. I did the last lecture. For those of you who don't know what Dr. Higgins is referring to, and the last lecture is this wonderful tradition that the new provost started here, but it's existed previously where someone who's retiring is, gives their thoughts about career over time. And it was really a fun thing to prep for. And I think to direct it towards the question that you asked me about is particularly, I think for young investigators or students who see themselves wanting to have research as part of their career pathway, so as academic scientists, neuroscientists, clinician scientists, et cetera, the current funding landscape looks very daunting. I mean, they see and hear their faculty who are PIs on grants. There was a large concern, as many of you are aware, of the devaluing of science and how would their work be supported? Because for so many years, the United States, and particularly in healthcare, medicine and science, has been at the forefront. And a lot of that's been, that assumptive power. I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but has been really shaken. And so it's something that, although Rush has kind of dodged a bullet in terms of our own funding streams currently, it is something that the young faculty, so not just the students, but the young faculty are, reassessing or looking for assurances or having doors open for pathways to them. And I think it's a different world than when I started as a young faculty member at UCSF, and where there were just a lot of resources, high expectations, but a lot of resources for moving forward, the questions you wanted to test, where the interventions you wanted to make. But I'm going to pivot a little bit. So I'm throwing this back off schedule here, Bob, for 2 seconds. Then I think Pete actually has some thoughts on this, is that I think the secret sauce, stealing your term, of what has made the dean's ability to respond to our PhD students, or even the young faculty and the students who are thinking about what careers they follow. Are they going to be a scientist, clinician, or also an academic, and the three roles that exist, is that we here at Rush have been able to lean into our philanthropic community and our donors in particular. I'll start crying here in 2 seconds if I think about how we've leaned to some donors and said, this young investigator would have had a perfect score on an R01 and is not going to get funded. And it's devastating to have that happen. And some of the donors have just stepped up and said, what would it take? What can we do? What foundation can we plug them into? And so I think that these are, challenging times, but that the community here really has been the sort of helped with the soft landing, so that there are still a number. We just had the big research symposium that had a huge turnout, and the last lecture was like the last thing of that day. And if you could have bottled that enthusiasm for science and change and being a healthcare clinician who does that kind of work on a team, an investigative team, or hypothesis test a better way to approach an intervention for the patients, I would have been like, boy, this just got dialed back to, the heydays of American science and support. And nobody was talking about how, the funding lines at NIH were, kind of blown apart. So I think that there is optimism that we will still be able to prepare individuals to be scientists, practitioners, teachers, practitioners, and in that model of, the best of all worlds. But Pete in the School of Medicine has a lot of great things going on in terms of the science side. So I'll pass it to him. I'm preempting Bob here.
You're queuing me up.
Perfect.
Perfectly. Thank you. Thank you for fielding my question as well. I do appreciate it. One of the things stepping into this role, I've been a busy surgeon, but I've always lived an academic career, done lots of clinical research, and we started a very successful clinical trials program. But stepping into the dean role, I really had to spend the first few months, and I wanted to really meet a lot of the members of the research community. That was really important. There's a lot of PhD researchers who are doing great work, and I haven't interfaced with them as much in my 12 years here. So I've met with at least 2 or 3 dozen people in the first 2, 3 months. And one of the things I've learned is we really have a pretty amazing ecosystem of research here. Probably doesn't get the level of notoriety that it deserves. And when you think about the Alzheimer's, neurosciences, bone and joint, health equity, GI, I could go on and on. We have pockets of amazing research that is already happening here. I think the goal for us is to really make sure that we're organized in a way that things that we're really good at, we have to protect, because we're in an environment where the NIH is not meeting. And when does the next grant get funded, even if it got the best score, right? So, we are actually launching a strategic planning process for research in partnership with the other colleges. I think it's going to kick off on March 30th. And that was something through Dr. Higgins' charge. And I think it's really an important one to see where we are and where it is that we want to go. And I won't give away the punchline, because this is really going to be driven by the research community. But some of the key things, and I'll just go through just 2, maybe 3 overarching themes. One is we have to organize around clusters. Research has really moved to team science, and we really have to think that way. And it's not about creating a cluster and then putting a wall around it. The clusters have to be organized in a way where they welcome others, whether it's other physicians, busy clinicians, or nurses, or allied health professionals who can partner and also elevate that research. So that's going to be a really critical charge that I've assigned this task force. I think the other thing is, as I talk to people, they're not shy. They tell me what's going well and what's not going well. And we have some work to do when it comes to our research infrastructure, whether it's clinical trials or it comes to, or cores. And I think that's where philanthropy is really going to be critical. And lastly, we really have to focus on diversifying our funding streams. We just can't rely on the NIH. It's clearly apparent, even if the administration changes in a few years, we're always going to be at the whims of the political world, and we can't do research like that. So thinking of foundations and partnering more closely with industry and, again, philanthropy, all of these are going to be critical avenues so we can stay true to that mission.
Awesome. Well, great answers to the question. I guess in the final question before we have some from the audience is, if you look forward in the next 5 years, thinking about your vision for the programs that you are closely involved with, what do you see as the bright spot and opportunities for us as an institution? So Nadine, maybe you can give us your reflection about that from the College of Health Sciences in the next 5 years. What do you think the future looks like?
Thanks. Awesome question. I hope that in the future, the College of Health Science remains recognized, but maybe more so nationally recognized, that all of the programs get the national recognition they deserve. And I really think scholarship can play a huge role to bring students to the table that may not have been able to have a shot at a career in healthcare. Because personally, I have I have the most diverse program in the College of Health Sciences, master's program, I should be specific. But having the diversity in the classroom really then echoes what those students see in their professional field. And it is great to give as many students an opportunity to get to the table as possible. So I hope that not just for our college, but all 3, that scholarships can continue to get those students that really deserve a chance to the table. And then that brings that national recognition that everyone deserves.
Great. Pete, what do you think? The next 5 years, what's your
There's a lot.
what's the ball look like?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things, as I step into my role, as I think about, but I always remind people, where do we start before we get to 5 years from now? I think it's important to affirm we have amazing clinical programs. We're in U.S. Honor Roll, U.S. News and World Report Honor Roll Hospital. There's only 20 hospitals in the country out of 5,000 they surveyed that get to say that. 13 of our programs are ranked in the top 50, and 3 of them are tops in the state. We have great undergraduate and graduate medical education programs, and we have the health equity mission as well. So that's kind of our foundation. And as I look at least a couple of the impactful things that I hope I'm able to accomplish, one is going to be around how we look at education in the future. And it will look very different. I think in 5 years, our medical school will look different. There's no question we'll be teaching our students about AI. It'll be much more technologically driven. But also, we've all gone through, those of you who are physicians in the audience, all of us have gone through 4 years of medical school. And how many of you remember actually like spending the 4th year in medical school, right? You did some residency interviews and you maybe took 2 classes, right? All of us did it, right? Could we think about maybe shortening it to 3 years? I think the time is right. The Grad Plus loans are going to go away. The entire model of education and medicine is moving to competency-based. All of our residency programs have already moved to that. So we should really be thinking, could we think about an accelerated pathway? About 15, 20 med schools across the country are already doing it. And if we could do that, we could even create a pipeline into our primary care programs or areas where we really need to invest in, and those could then be the future positions at Rush. I think the other thing that I get really excited about is clinical programs. Before I came here, I was in a meeting. Matt Walsh, our Chief Operating Officer, started a clinical growth strategy work group. And different departments, service lines, they bring ideas. And they're looking for funding on things that they want to do to help our patients. And today, what they talked about was a new robot. It's called the Samani robot. Most of you may know about microsurgery, where you're doing things that are maybe a few millimeters. This actually allows you to get below 1 millimeter. Think about the thickness of your fingernail. You can sew blood vessels or lymphatics that small. There's going to be a clinical trial that's going to be launched with this that'll look at perhaps reversing or slowing down Alzheimer's disease. So those are the types of things that we ought to be thinking about investing in. And those are the types of programs that we want to build here. And so I think we may not have the largest health system in the region, but we can lead on innovation in a lot of the things we have. So I think our future's bright.
Awesome, Pete. Christine?
I've been thinking about this a lot because I'm, closing out my chapter of time here and also where the college is at. And similar to some of Pete's comments, College of Nursing is in very good shape around its academics. It's growing its research mission. But one of the unique aspects of the college that I'm not sure the entire audience would be familiar with is that we have a very significant, large faculty practice. And although our physician colleagues do that model and have for years, in nursing, it was really much more, many places have a traditional model where a graduate school is all about education and maybe research. So two lanes of the highway. But Rush has had for a number of years, close to 25 years, a aspect to its faculty role where we have individuals who practice out in the community, and we particularly have what would have been called an incubator a number of years ago, which is developing faculty practices for both our educational needs, students being precepted, but also where we're delivering healthcare amongst our advanced practice nurses, so nurse practitioners out on the west side. And I would say during the pandemic, the all-time high was we were running close to 25 clinics throughout Chicago. Those numbers have changed, but Rush is the #1 place that has such a historical, sophisticated faculty practice model, if you will. So that development of that part of our work needs to continue. And one of the shifts that I would be really excited about, and I would be remiss in not acknowledging the former president, Dr. Goodman, who's in the audience here, and his support to our faculty practice group was to do more work within the business community and facilitate those relationships with the nonprofits, but also some of the businesses like our Flying Food Groups, which is out an airport food service group. And so I think that is right now in sort of that middle space, but there are many faculty who are anxious to see, could they practice? Could they have relationships with the business world in terms of innovation? Because if you think about nurses just on the hospital side, all the equipment we work with, IVs, let's talk about all the companies that are making hospital-based equipment and the role that a nurse could have in the redesign of that equipment so it better serves, it's a marketable product, but it also better serves a hospital or a patient-based. And I think that's an area where nursing has not had a pathway forward. How do you innovate with the business community on the products that are made and sold in healthcare? And I think that's a real, we have some number of younger faculty who have developing interest and expertise in that regards. So I see that as being a place where the college could go over the next 5 years or so in that market area. So.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think we may have, unless Julie have a final summary comment, time for a question. Sure, here you go.
Joanna Bisgrove, family physician here at Rush. I can say with authority for all of you, my affiliation with Rush goes deeper because back in the 80s, I was a child running the corridors of the atrium basement. My father worked on the MRI machine. I bleed Rush green, and I want Rush to continue to succeed. And I came back 4 years ago. I'm another comebacker. I came back 4 years ago because Rush is committed to an ethos that I've been committed to through my advocacy career of physicians, healthcare providers, nurses, looking like our patients, improving, increasing the number of people who of color with disabilities within Rush. And yet now with the funding cuts and issues, that is at risk, particularly for our non-traditional students who need to take extra time. The 3-year pathway I love because that makes it more financially affordable, but there will be students that cannot do that. So I guess my question is, how are we going to approach keeping that diversity that's so important to Rush and our ideas and our research to make it well-rounded and help us continue to succeed?
Great question. You want to tackle that?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a wonderful question. I reflect back to my time here, and when I have interviewed students who come here to apply for ENT, and they always ask you, what sort of patients do you see? I always tell them my clinic's kind of like the United Nations. It's kind of how it was this afternoon. I walked into one room and somebody was speaking Cantonese, and the next room they were speaking Spanish. And then you may see somebody who's a CEO from the north side of Chicago. And we take care of everybody, and we take care of them the same. Your point is well taken. It's going to get more and more challenging to honor that. When you have billions of dollars that are removed out of healthcare, who's going to be able to come here? We want to take care of all of those patients, right? I think when it comes to looking at the type of students that we want to train or residents, we want them to look like the communities we serve. I think that the challenge is how will we continue to do that? As I set the foundation and the structure of the medical school that I want it to be, I plan to partner with Bob, Omar, others on scholarships. That is not my year one goal because I have a lot of other foundational things that I need to accomplish. But that's how we create the environment for students to be able to come to Rush and support them when they may not have the means to do so.
We did take the approach from the admissions perspective when a lot of the scrutiny arose to think about our admissions processes, focusing on the character of the applicants to a lesser degree than their characteristics. And that has kind of helped free us up from some of the challenges, the legal challenges that might come from outside sources. But it is a daunting task, and to stay on focus in terms of mission, to make sure that we serve those communities that desperately in need. And so we'll continue to do that while still staying on the right side of the law and promoting fantastic educational experiences for everybody who comes. Other questions? Time for a couple more.
Well, first of all, this was really enjoyable discussion, and we're honored to be here. My wife and I are alumni of University of Chicago, but we come here for our care. And why do we come here? Well, first of all, it's like a family. You're providing not care, but caring care, compassionate care. Unfortunately, even though we are approaching our last posting, as we say in the Army, we don't require too much of it, but nevertheless, we come here. One caution, though, even though I understand advanced technology because myself and my wife modernized the Department of Defense with advanced technology, telemedicine in '89, virtual reality, simulation, nanotechnology, you name it, we did it. I was hired here by Dr. Goodman and Leo Henikoff to come here to bring advanced technology to Rush. I didn't do much, but be very cautious when you replace too much with the technology and you lose the human contact. I realize that young people with their phones and all this, that they don't mind going through the AI before you get to the real person to talk to. But somebody who's 88 years old, I do mind. And so, as I said, be very cautious with that because you'll lose something that Rush has that other people don't have. Now, we're very active at the University of Chicago, but you see me here, not at the University of Chicago, because this is the place to be. And I thank people like Larry Goodman, Leo Henikoff, and other people.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Ron?
Ron Rembrandt, came here for residency and taught students from Rush. I worked with the Institute of Translational Medicine, also at University of Chicago. Has that partnership continued with Rush to this day? Because I was there when they started it. And also want to see some of the challenges that you guys are facing and overcoming, working with them and working basically within IHN. Are you looking at business partnerships, as was mentioned before, for potential funding opportunities? As you mentioned, you can have best score and still not get funded.
I can do a quickie and then I'm going to pass it to Pete on that. So the ITM, which is what you're referring to, just finished this in this last year, its fifth year, which was probably the third funding, bucket, if you will, over the past 10 to 15 years. And they did the three, Loyola and University of Chicago and Rush, put together another ITM proposal that we'll see where that one lands in the current funding world. So there have been some incredible outcomes of the last ITM, which was focused on health equity related issues in particular, that I would say for nursing also helped support some of our young investigators with, cool new things that people could learn that they hadn't had in their programs. But Pete, this lives partially over in the RCM, so.
Yeah, no, the ITM is still going strong. I've had 2 or 3 conversations with Josh Jacobs, who you probably know. He's our former vice provost of research, and they're putting in their application for the next cycle. And, they've been funded 3 times to date. A lot of research that's come out, and I think again speaks to the concept of team science when, though various institutions around the city are competitors, let's call it for what it is, but we don't have to compete on science. We can actually come together, work together, because the work that we all do will benefit all of our patients, whether they're on the west side of Chicago or on the south side of Chicago. So I think all of that is going strong. And, what I'm hoping is once we, I'm anxious for that strategic planning process to launch. It will not solve everything. I don't have delusions like that, but I'm hopeful it will give us a framework of things that we want to accomplish. And the most important thing that I think will come out of that is an actual governance council where the research community can actually self-govern, where I don't have to be the adjudicator of every minor thing on who gets this office or who gets that. I know Larry is laughing because I know he did that for almost 20 years. So we're trying to do, so I think that'll be an important thing for us to do.
Great. One last question.
Shelley, the College of Nursing. I go all the way back to the Luther Chrisman, James Campbell era. And the distinguishing characteristic there was this incredible integration of the academic side and the delivery side. It was seamless. You couldn't choose one or the other. You were moving. So I'm curious as to what today's environment yields in terms of the integration. We talked about across colleges, but I'm curious about that.
Great question. You want to take that, Christine, or?
Sure. I think it is transformed over time. So are we like during Luther's time in terms of everybody who's on faculty in the College of Nursing specifically has a role over on across the street in the hospital? No, but it has transformed in ways that I think followed the changes in nursing practice, which is that over the past those years, nurses are not just working in the hospital, they're out in the community at large. And I think it's coming full circle now by virtue of a third of our graduate students are Rush nurses. And so there is still a significant role in that relationship. And there's more, I would say, obvious partnerships of where each side of the street leans into each other's strengths. So I'll give you another example. A couple of years ago, clinical trials was having a lot of challenges, about 2021 or so, in terms of managing the nursing side of a clinical trial provision. And so we're like, how can we help? And we designed a certificate program to onboard nurses who hadn't worked in that space previously. And that is now an offering that's been very well received by the day-to-day nursing staff, if you will, who want to move into clinical trials work. So although it is not the Chrisman model of the 50s, where there was, an exact, a person would be in both places, I still feel there's very strong partnerships in the new roles, in the new places. And Rush is out in the community a lot now because hospital care is not the dominant place where people receive their care anymore. So I think we've moved with the times in a good way.
Awesome. Well, I think we're at time, but the panelists, I'm sure, will be around. How about a round of applause for our leaders? We're really fortunate to see that, and thank all of you for being here and supporting the program and hearing the voices of vision for the future. I think that the future is bright with this leadership group, and we're really excited about how they're going to innovate and hopefully help us discover new ways to take care of patients. As my mom used to say, pressure makes diamonds, and we want to be a jewel in the crown of American healthcare. And we're under that kind of scrutiny now. There's pressures externally and internally, but I think we can handle them with this leadership group, and we're optimistic about the future, thanks to all of you. So appreciate you taking the time, and have a great evening. Thanks. Sorry. I was trying to give you.